Hello and welcome to Ascend's Aviation 2020 interview. This week I'd like to introduce Gary Crichlow, one of Ascend's aviation analysts. Gary, how is the business jet market currently performing and what's the outlook for 2009?
Well, the first thing that you need to understand about the biz jet market is that there are two different segments. There is the new delivery market and then there is the used market. When looking at biz jets, people generally prefer a new delivery example if they can possibly get it, and only if their budget doesn't allow it, or if the aircraft backlog is so long that they're not willing to wait for a new delivery example. That's when they will turn to the used market. So in terms of market performance, what we've found is that since about the beginning of the year, we've seen some signs of softening on the used market, particularly older aircraft, out of production types, smaller jets. And it's only in the last couple of months that we've begun seeing that extend to the upper end of the used market. But up until just a couple months ago, the new delivery market was looking fine as well. However, since about September, it's been actually quite remarkable how the used market and the new delivery market have both really taken a turn for the worse. If you looked at, in 2007, some of the delivery forecasts that manufacturers were putting out, they were predicting that deliveries would continue to grow from 2007 to about 2011. Since this year, the updated forecasts have looked at that maybe peaking around 2010. And then in the last couple of months, it's actually started to look like 2009 or even 2008 could be the delivery peak, especially when you consider that major manufacturers like Hawker Beechcraft and Cessna have both recently announced production cuts for next year. So it could actually be that 2008 is the delivery peak on the new delivery market as well. And so the answer to the question basically is that the bizjet market is in for a rough ride on both the new delivery side and the used market in the short term. Long term, however, the outlook remains positive.
Are we likely to see any new emerging markets?
In terms of absolutely new emerging markets, the answer is no. There's no major market that remains completely untapped right now. However, if you look at the major emerging markets of Brazil, Russia, India, China, the so-called BRIC economies, each one of them has significant hurdles that needs to be overcome before they can realize their true potential. For example, you have lack of infrastructure. In India, you only have 140 usable airfields at the moment, compared to 19,000 in the US, and those sorts of infrastructure challenges don't get fixed overnight. You also have issues in terms of high import duties in some of these emerging markets, regulatory regimes that make it difficult to actually operate bizjets into and out of the countries. So there are a lot of hurdles that still need to be overcome. That said, the potential is vast. There are signs that the markets are opening up, and manufacturers and resellers are definitely rushing into these markets to establish a presence so that when these markets do finally open up completely, they're there to take advantage of it.
What's the most popular aircraft type and why?
In terms of popular aircraft types, the thing is that the number of bizjets types that are around, they're so incredibly varied, and they're each tailored to a specific mission, a specific customer profile. So there's no one particular popular aircraft type. At the upper end of the market, you have your ultra-long range jets, the flagship models that will whisk you from London to Tokyo non-stop. And these are typically the ones that have been most resilient in market downturns. And so on one hand, you have the Gulfstream G550s and aircraft of that type that are quite popular, not just in terms of the US market, but also a broad international appeal. And then on the other hand, you have the very small, very light jets, the VLJs, that are just coming into the market as well, that seat 4 to 5 people, much lower operating and acquisition costs that look like they're going to be popular as well. And you have all the types in between. In general, what happens across the aircraft types, as I'd said earlier, is that people like young, new aircraft. So if there's a popular aircraft type, it's new delivery, young ones.
How are values performing across the different business jet categories?
Well, what we have seen is that values have begun to soften since the beginning of the year generally for smaller types, smaller medium types. whereas the upper end of the segment, the G550s, like I was saying earlier, were remaining firm. Since about September or so, with the current financial crisis, the upper end of the market is also beginning to experience a downturn. And so across the board, BizJet values have been dropping. One of the things that has been interesting to see as well is that on the upper end of the market, because of the size of the backlogs, it was possible that you could get a relatively old aircraft on the used market for as much or more than a new delivery example if you ordered it today, because owners were not willing to wait. That sort of time premium, however, has eroded, and it's eroded quickly.